A few days ago, I heard some statements about the history of the flamenco guitar in some lectures that crashed with the results obtained in my research work about this subject. In episode 36 of the podcast Forgotten Sounds of Flamenco, I will discuss about what flamencology says about the beginning of the flamenco concert guitar and how the research says something quite different. You will also be able to listen to some flamenco concert guitar works from the 19th century.
Sounds that once were listened. Sounds that once were enjoyed. Sounds that once were danced. Sounds relegated to oblivion. And yet, there is still something we can do for them. Let us summon them. Let us summon them.
Welcome to the podcast Forgotten Sounds of Flamenco. My name is José Miguel Hernández Jaramillo, and I invite you to enroll in this journey through the sounds, stories, spaces, and people that were part of the 19th century flamenco. Hello, how are you? I hope you're really well. I am very happy to share with you a new episode of this podcast. A few days ago, I was able to attend the first edition of the Madrid Flamenco Guitar Festival. I hope this festival will be repeated for many more years because the trust is that there are very few festivals dedicated to flamenco guitar in Spain. As a flamenco guitarist, I have always been sad about how little the flamenco guitar is valued in Spain and the few spaces it is given. So congratulations for the creation of this festival. We are already looking forward for its second edition. And why am I telling you this? Well, notice, in addition to the guitar concerts, a series of lectures on the flamenco guitar of the early 20th century were also scheduled, since the festival was dedicated to the guitarist Ramón Montoya, a true genius and revolutionary of the flamenco guitar like very few in history. Well, in those lectures, I was able to hear some statements that are not entirely accurate according to what I have been finding in my research work on flamenco music and guitar. This inspires me to do this episode to share with you the concerns that cause me to continue listening to some precepts that flamencology continues to repeat in courses and lectures when research is showing that a review of said precepts is necessary. Some of the things I heard in these lectures are, for example, that it was from Miguel Borrul and Ramón Montoya in the first years of the 20th century when the flamenco guitar enriched specific instrumental techniques such as the tremolo due to the contact of flamenco guitarists with classical or academic guitarists. This statement is not only not true, but also shows again a prejudice that the classical guitar is better, superior, or more elaborated, all of which are, in quotes, than the flamenco guitar. From the very beginning of this art known as flamenco, some guitarists played flamenco using all kinds of guitar techniques, precisely the same, or I would even dare say more techniques than classical guitarists. Proof of this are the numerous chronicles of flamenco guitar performances and the scores that have come down to us of some of the flamenco concert works of the 19th century. There we can see all kinds of techniques, such as strums, arpeggios, tremolos, and picados, which were also used at that time in the classical guitar, even some such as the alzapúa, which is more typical of the flamenco guitar. Therefore, the statement I mentioned that it was from Ramón Montoya's generation of guitarists in the 20th century that those techniques were incorporated into flamenco guitar cannot continue to be maintained. As a testament to the rich history of flamenco guitar, I presented in episode 5 of this podcast a flamenco concert guajira from the late 19th century. This piece, composed for flamenco guitar solo concert performances, showcased a variety of techniques such as arpeggios and the use of harmonics. Let's take a moment to appreciate this guajira, a musical gem that encapsulates the essence of flamenco guitar from its early days. Well, I also heard in these lectures that Montoya was the first great flamenco guitar concertist, since before him flamenco guitarists only accompanied singing or dancing. This also surprised me because from the early days of flamenco there were guitarists who composed and played concert flamenco guitar works. I'll give you just one example. In 1896, we read an announcement of the next flamenco performance in Madrid. It says the following: "Tonight there will be a tremendous extraordinary evening in the Zorrilla Hall, which will surely be liked by the public. The famous guitarist Carmelo Recio, one of the most traditional guitarists in the lowlands, will perform the most difficult pieces from his notable repertoire to the Madrid public. There will also be Andalusian dance and singing, in which the singers Antonio Salazar, El Chaqueta, Antonio Revuelta, and Trinidad Navarro, La Trini, the Sevillian couple of dancers, Alfredo Medina and Isabel Santos, will show off their exceptional skills, and the dancers Juana and Maria Alvarez, Las Macarronas." Carmelo Recio was a young guitarist who came to Madrid from Granada and played concert flamenco guitar, and according to the Chronicle, there were challenging works. There was a space for the flamenco guitar between flamenco singing and dancing, even with these leading figures of the moment. This was very common in those years. And we know that this concert was of flamenco guitar not only because the rest of the cast were flamenco artists, or because he was called tocador instead of guitarristas, but because we have news of ads for his guitar classes in Granada years before, where it was advertised as a specialty in flamenco toques, that is, flamenco guitar. Other statements I heard these days were that starting with Ramón Montoya, the flamenco concert guitar began to be present on stages in many countries, and of course in many cities in Spain. This is also not accurate because other guitarists have also done it previously. I'm going to read you another piece of news referring precisely to the same guitarist, Carmelo Recio, from the year 1896. The master concertist Carmelo Recio has arrived to Madrid after an artistic excursion through the peninsula's most important capitals. As mentioned earlier, we understand that his guitar skills as a teacher in the Andalusian or flamenco genre has powerfully attracted the attention of everywhere he was. Here it is clear that he is called a concertist, that is, he gives flamenco concerts. Is very skilled and has triumphed on the tour of several Spanish cities. With these fragments I have read another of the statements in the lectures also call into question that Ramón Montoya was the guitarist who defined the flamenco guitar repertoire. Of course, Ramón Montoya contributed to defining some toques that emerged as new cantes were incorporated into flamenco. Still, to affirm that he defined the flamenco guitar repertoire, I think this very generic statement would have to be qualified as a lot. It seems that before Ramón Montoya there was no concert flamenco guitar repertoire, which we have seen was not the case. We are going to listen to another flamenco concert guitar piece from the 19th century, and its title leaves no doubt whether it was a flamenco or classical piece. The title is Jaleos Flamencos, and it is from the last decade of the 19th century. We are going to listen to a fragment of this work that I played in Madrid at a concert last summer. If you want to listen to the complete work, you can find it in a video of this concert in the YouTube channel Sonidos Olvidados en Musicología Creativa, where you can also find all the episodes of this podcast and some extra contents related to these early stages of flamenco. Well, the reflection I want us to make in this episode is that, as we have seen, flamencology is full of this type of precepts, theories, and statements which are stated in much a resounding and definite way that the listeners has no room to doubt. Still, if you scratch it a little, you can see that there are not much solid theories. In some cases, it is even questionable or quite doubtful. I always defend humility in research. That is, not stating things so categorically if we are not 100% sure. It is okay to use terms such as probably, everything points to, or as far as we know, and this does not make us worse researchers. For me, these are essential things, and there is no room for saying things that one assumes without having solid research to back them up. And this contributes even more to the enormous confusion that has occurred in the construction of history of flamenco. The remarkable lack of knowledge about flamenco that actually happened is incredible. In this podcast, I try to show it to you little by little. Well, I hope you like this episode. I hope you follow us on social media and subscribe to some podcast platforms where we are. As always, see you here in 2 Fridays with an episode that you cannot miss it. I'll be waiting for you.